This is the Domain Magnet Show, where you'll learn everything you need to know about buying, optimizing, and selling online businesses with your host, Michael Beroslavsky.
Hello, welcome listeners. Today we are chatting with Ryan Kaufman from Digital Acquisitions. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Michael, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
Doing great. A little sleepy, end of the evening here in Portland, but excited to chat and share some information with the audience.
I like this setup. You have some pictures of the unicorn.
Yeah, my daughter painted these for me. She's a little aspiring artist. She's 8 years old.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Actually, I was really proud of them. We have 8-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, and last week they decided that they were going to have an art sale, and they brought their pieces out to the curb and put up flyers all over the neighborhood so that they could have a sale. So I feel like I'm doing my job of raising little young entrepreneurs already.
Nice. You're gonna have 2 young artists.
Hopefully something they like doing.
So it's cool. I know we've chatted a lot over the past years, like over the decade. But I think this is the first time we are having a call. So it's nice to finally chat face to face.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've shared a lot of back and forth back in the Trusted Site Seller days before we rebranded. So yeah, it's good to get face to face.
Yeah, it's funny. I looked it up now, and it turns out we were chatting a lot about different flipper deals, and I think you were negotiating to buy some from me. I was negotiating to buy some from you, and we were probably competing on some deals we were both trying to buy at some point.
Probably.
But I feel like you took a different direction. So I know that you started by kind of buying and selling sites on your own as well, right? And then you went more into brokering.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So what's that like?
I really like it. I learned early on. I really like the technical aspect of learning about the technologies, and digital marketing strategies that you need in digital agencies and SaaS. But I also have a really kind of strong deal-making vibe to me, and I really enjoy the process of bringing two parties together and putting a deal together, and I'm pretty good at it. So I still have some side projects where I'm running some sites, one SaaS and another blog, and continue to kind of sell some. But my main focus is in the brokerage these days, and just continuing to kind of move upstream and find that those niches to serve our core audience.
So when did you start in this industry, in this business?
Yeah, good question. I started the brokerage about 8 years ago, and I mean, if you wanted to go way back, there was a partner of mine, Chris Parker, who actually started Trusted Site Seller, and I partnered with him, and he was kind of representing deals on, selling them through Flippa, and kind of really the first iteration of website brokering. It was kind of a cool time. So partnered with him, and he decided to go off and do a stand-up paddleboard directory site or something. He was an Australian, and so I bought him out of that business, and just kind of ran it as a side hustle, I guess, maybe for 4 years. I still was doing affiliate marketing and some performance campaigns, had a lot of fun driving a lot of traffic through Google AdWords to landing pages and monetizing through CPA networks, and just kind of following all the newest cool ways to make money online. And then I actually sold a business for a longtime client, sold I had sold three of his businesses. And after the last one, we were kind of chatting, asking what he was up to and what was next for him. And he was like, I don't really know what's up. And so somebody I really respected and knew his work ethic. And so kind of asked him if he wanted to be a partner in what was then Trusted Site Seller. And that was Dustin Struckman, my partner today. He's up in Seattle. And that's when we kind of both went full-time into and full focus into the brokerage. We rebranded to Digital Acquisitions to kind of represent a more brandable name and represent that we're kind of a global international company.
So it's like back in 2000 and 2012, 2011 that you rebranded.
I think no. We rebranded to Digital Acquisitions in 2017.
Okay, but you've been brokering for 8 years, so like since 2011 or so.
Yeah. Yep.
And before that, you were buying and selling some sites on your own as well.
Yeah. Gosh. Kind of take back blast to the past. We could talk all day about the different kind of side hustles. Like, we were doing. It was a lot easier back in those days because ranking was a lot easier. It's funny to me to think because I bought. So I was on some sites and forums. I'm sure you'll remember, like Digital Point and Warrior Forum and. Name something. It was like a
Name Pros.
Name Pros. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still around.
So I was like, kind of buying some small sites, and at that time, $500,000 sites is what people. At least that's what I was looking at and buying, and then kind of buying high PR domains and kind of hustling and selling links for $50 a pop for lifetime links on a PR7 site. And one of my first sites, I think it was a PR7, I wish I still had it today, was called tutorialcollection.com. And it's a good domain name, man. And then I sold that for a couple $100, like after I had sold some links on it. And so, anyway, just kind of was in that space and just like always following what was new and what was coming up, and kind of found my home in helping other people sell their businesses and navigate them through that process. Yeah,
I guess we started around the same time. So I kind of bought my first site around 2005, 2006, and also started by buying some sites for like a few $100, and then I did some bigger deals like in a few $1,000, and selling some links. Yeah, I also had some PR6, PR7, maybe even PR8 site or something like that at the time. And then it's interesting. So then I kind of got more into buying. I realized there is this huge opportunity because you could buy sites at like 10 multiple or below 10 back then.
Yeah.
And I bought up a bunch, and I figured that's a great deal because I could buy them. I could improve AdSense. Back then, no one knew how to position AdSense properly. The conversions would be terrible. So I would just buy a website and I would simply, take that AdSense banner and put it on top. And like, that's it. That's all the optimization you needed to just double the conversion rate, double the revenue.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I ended up with quite a substantial portfolio that I realized I have to figure out what's next. And I figured I would sell some of them. So I had my first six-figure deal back, I guess like 2009, 2010, and sold a few of them and, got some funds and kind of started buying and selling. And I guess you went the opposite direction. And I was always considering that. I was always considering doing some more brokering, but that seemed less attractive to me. I always was a lot more attracted to that side of flipping, buying and managing sites, managing portfolio. And so I'm really curious about kind of your view on that and, convince me why I'm wrong. Why is brokering better?
Well, I don't think it necessarily is better. I think it lends itself to certainly a certain personality type. I mean, if you have kind of a sales mentality, an outgoing personality, kind of like the process of overcoming objections and putting a deal together, then I think it's the perfect fit. I guess just kind of looking at it objectively, the nice thing about brokering is that there's a beginning and an end. And your involvement in an individual deal has a pretty short lifespan, at least actively. Of course, we like to, continue to help our clients long after they've done. But it's not like if you purchased a SaaS business or a blog, you until you sell it, you have an active role and you have an active kind of risk in something happening to that business, a search engine penalty, a monetization partner falling off. So to me, it was less overhead to me, less mental overhead to have to worry about, acquiring a portfolio of properties. And I'm just kind of by nature more of a people person. So getting the opportunity to talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs and help them kind of, for what a lot of people, one of the biggest moments of their life is, selling a business that they've worked for a number of years on. And so that, I think, is probably for me, the best point of being a broker and running a brokerage is being able to kind of impact so many people's lives and positively and kind of help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's certainly a different aspect to it, and it requires a bit different set of skills. And I suppose it's a lot less risky. But what are some hard parts about brokering that many people might not know? Like, what is the difficult part about it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we've spent a lot of time in kind of building up our relationships with especially buyers so that they trust us and we trust them for the most part. The hardest part, I would say, is having to look at buyers with a lens of kind of pessimism and understanding, because everybody wants to project themselves as being kind of a professional buyer, professional investor, and kind of weeding through those stories to understand what is real and what is being kind of made up. Because and it might not matter in the LOI stage or in the review stage, but once you get a buyer into the due diligence stage, that's when it's really imperative to understand what kind of buyer you're working with, especially in upper 6-figure, 7-figure deals. I've seen a number of times where somebody with the best of intentions comes into a 7-figure deal because they want to buy something through an SBA loan, and without the experience of going through a deal of that size before, the doubts just really start creeping in, and the ability to execute. And it's a big decision. Putting SBA loan, yeah, it's great. You can get in for 10% down, but you're also putting, you're leveraging your personal, your net worth. You're personally guaranteeing those loans. So it's not a light decision to be made, and that's, I think, one of the hardest parts is kind of qualifying the buyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there always a personal guarantee in an SBA loan?
As far as I know, yes.
And so does it happen often that people at that stage, like at the later stage when they start to get the loan and set things up, that they decide to back out, or they kind of change their mind? Is that something that happens?
Yeah, it does. And sometimes it's not even it's not necessarily the buyer's fault, because it introduces a lot of additional steps into the process, because not only does the buyer have to commit to the deal, But now you're involving bankers and underwriters into the process, which is good for the buyer in a lot of cases because you have a second set of eyes that are looking at a deal to kind of de-risk it. But at the same time, it increases the closing time and the due diligence time and can just really throw some wrenches into a deal. So, I mean, obviously our preference is to deal with cash buyers and private equity firms. They obviously have executed on a number of deals. When they see something they like, they can execute with their own funds and close in 30 to 45 days, where, sometimes with an SBA, you're looking at, 60 plus to get a deal done.
So a typical SBA deal in six figures, let's say mid six figures, that might take you a couple months, or would it take substantially longer, like the entire deal, let's say from starting negotiation to closing?
Yeah, so usually the clock starts ticking once the LOI is submitted, because that's when they can involve the bankers. And yeah, we're kind of seeing that 60, 75 day period through our preferred SBA lenders right now. And of course it depends on how qualified the buyers are, how strong a business is being qualified. But yeah, the ones that are good fits for an SBA loan are processing in around that 2 month period, usually a bit longer than that. I'd say 75 days maybe is a good estimate.
And that's the time it takes to get the loan approved and funded, or is it just the entire process?
Yeah, approved and funded, and usually we'll kind of we'll have the buyer be conducting due diligence simultaneously with the SBA process, so that they don't have that, the due diligence period doesn't have to tack on to that period. And
do you also have some kind of inspection period? So we just recorded an episode with Joe from Empire Flippers, and they have what they call a 2-week inspection period, so that the buyer can inspect, and potentially if a revenue drops about 50%, the buyer can potentially return it and get the full refund. So I'm curious if you do something similar.
We don't. And I think you'll find in the kind of M&A investment banking space that just doesn't happen. I understand the model for blogs and affiliate sites. It makes the due diligence period easier for the buyer, because they can kind of minimize the due diligence, which actually I think can be a risk, because the fact if a blog loses traffic in 30 days, it potentially gives a buyer a false sense of security that they don't have to conduct as much due diligence. So the fact that it doesn't deteriorate in the first 30 days doesn't necessarily mean that it's still a quality acquisition. So the deals that we're working on, there's a lot that goes into due diligence and code review, and so by the time the two parties come together at the closing table, there really isn't much of there's a lot of trust and goodwill built up. And I guess the difference too, in a lot of cases, is we're talking about the difference between, a lot of their sites are kind of affiliate based and organic traffic based. Whereas in kind of a software and agency deals, which is what we specialize in, there's actual clients. There's actual clients that are on reoccurring billings. And so that's a lot easier to verify pre-closing than is organic traffic going to fall post-closing. So I think it's just a different model, and so that's how we handle things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I certainly agree that sometimes when you go and as a buyer, if you buy for a broker or for someone who does vetting, that might give you some false sense of security, especially for first-time buyers. They might feel that they don't have to do enough due diligence, and that's always wrong. Like you, as a buyer, you always have to do as much diligence as you can. Like you always should rely on your own kind of experience and numbers and due diligence. Absolutely.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're like we like to. We've really kind of focused in on a couple of niches that we can serve really well, and also not only kind of limited to the niches, but also qualifying the deal size. And so instead of kind of servicing and helping founders that have sites that are kind of $30,000 deals, and then trying to also work with people that have $10 million sites, we've really identified where we can provide as much value, and that's in that kind of $1 to $10 million range for SaaS and digital agencies, with our sweet spot being right around that $4 or $5 million range. So we just don't. We know where our services are best utilized, and we really don't kind of play in that kind of lower market, micro market, whatever you want to kind of call it. And yeah. Anyway, so that's just kind of wanted to highlight that because I think there's some benefits into not having a jack of all trades people. If you have somebody that understands how a certain industry works, then the broker is going to be able to communicate that to the buyers, and ultimately you're going to have a smoother deal. And what we've seen in a lot of cases, we're going to be able to extract the maximum value as well, just because we can keep the momentum of the deal going without having to kind of have the seller interpret things that we may not understand.
Yeah, there is certainly a lot of benefit in focusing on specific niche, specific type of business, and acquiring some expertise in it, so that your team, so that all the brokers are very knowledgeable. And so let's get some more into numbers. So you mentioned that you are focusing on 1 to 10 million. Is that is 1 million the minimum for you? What's your actual minimum for clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our kind of bottom floor minimum is right around that $500,000 mark. Of course, if it's 480, there's obviously some discretion there. If it's a business that is growing quickly and is in a kind of a disruptive space, then yeah, of course, we might make an exception. But yeah, our focus is really on attracting those businesses that are above the 1 million mark right now.
And you mentioned SaaS and digital agencies. So can you tell me a bit more? First of all, in terms of multiples, what kind of multiples are you seeing on SaaS and digital agencies? Yeah. And like those agencies, are they usually tied to a specific geographical location, or is it just all completely online or remote?
Yeah, good question. So for multiples, we're on SaaS, we're seeing anywhere from the kind of 3.5 to 4.5 levels, with kind of the median being right around the upper 3, lower 4s. And I'm not sure if there was a follow-up on the SaaS part of things, but on the agencies, a lot of times we're working with agencies that are ran remotely, just like our company is, and so geographic limitations aren't really relevant. We did close on a 7-figure deal for an agency earlier this year that did have a physical office, and the buyer actually relocated to the location to take over that business, and it wasn't in either me or my partner's kind of geographic area. So we were able to still manage that transaction and get a great exit for that seller without being in the geographic area.
Nice. And do you often have to travel in person, or is it everything online?
Yeah, occasionally. If it's a large deal and it's required to get the deal done, then of course, yeah, we'll travel to talk with either the buyer or the seller. But I'd say in the vast majority of the cases, everybody is getting so used to video conferencing, and and using Slack and whatnot, we were able to do that virtually most of the time.
All right, so let's get more into numbers. How big are you guys currently? So you on your site it says that you've closed 78 deals. Can you tell me a little bit more about like your revenue as a company, or like your sales volume, or the number of employees, things like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disclose exact numbers, but I can give you a sense of our growth. And we have 5 brokers on our team at the moment. They're distributed through. We have one up in London, one in Florida, another one in New Jersey. So distributed team, which it makes it nice. We can attend meetups and have a local presence in some of those markets. So we use Slack for all of our internal communications. So it works really well. We have Friday team meetings and stuff. So we try to get face to face with each other as much as possible. But so that's kind of the team structure. Myself and Dustin are kind of co-founders of Digital Acquisitions. So we lead the team as far as kind of strategy and kind of mentoring. I mean, we've seen kind of tremendous growth over the last couple of years, from 2018 to kind of 2019. Our deal flow and kind of deals, the deal values closed should end up at about kind of 5 to 6 times of what 2018 value was. So so that kind of gives you an idea. We tend to focus on kind of a small quantity of deals at a time. I just wrote down before we got on, we have 5 deals currently listed, and that's about where our number stays. Kind of at the 1 to 2 deals per broker, and I think that it's an interesting. We've always kind of tried to create the service that we would like if we were selling our business, and we like to think of ourselves as the kind of the brokers. I mean, I know that everybody is a sell side broker, but in reality, a lot of brokers are just trying to get the deal completed with very little interest in actually maximizing value for the client. And we like to really think of ourselves as as having a fiduciary duty to the client to really see the deal through and advise them in what their best next steps are, and not just, you got an offer, go for it, let's close this thing. It's like, hey, let's build up some tension. Let's see if we can have some competing offers, and let's maximize the value here, even if that means that the deal closing is going to take an additional month to get through. So, and I think in the long term, we're here for the long game. Those kind of treating sellers like we would like to be treated, and giving them a higher touch service, ultimately is going to come back with additional referrals and happy customers. So
nice. So you mentioned 5 deals, and how many deals do you expect to close this year? Would it be like 20, 30 or more?
It shouldn't. Probably won't be that many. I would say let's see. We've had about 6 to 7 close, and we have about 4 that are closing. So anywhere from 11 to 15, somewhere around that range. So
like the average deal would be generally somewhere in like mid 7 figures, something like that.
I mean, we have, looking at our kind of listing roster right now, we have one's 2 million, one 2.5, one that's 1.8, one that's 4, and then a small one that's at about 700K. So it kind of ranges from that mid 7 figures to to lower seven figures. Yeah.
And what's the biggest one that you've closed, let's say, like in the past couple of years?
Yeah, the biggest one we have under kind of due diligence at the moment. I hope it should be closing in October, and that's that $4.5 million deal. The largest we've closed to date is a two and a half million. Yeah, so
That's a smaller range, like the range like between $500,000 and like 2.5 or like 5 million, right? So I mean, like the range is kind of narrow. And what would be the lowest that you've closed in the past like couple of years? Would it be also around $500,000?
No, the lowest.
Yeah, like the smallest.
Well, like I said, we've been kind of aggressively moving upstream. So what we were doing at the beginning of 2018 isn't necessarily representative of what we're doing at the end of 2019. So we had some deals we were doing for a couple $100,000, and like I said, those are that what we learned was the quality of deals and the quality of buyers is higher as you move upstream. And I don't want to say there's not as much work, because the expertise you need is different to be able to communicate with those people. But it sometimes can actually be an easier deal to put together, because you're not usually working with inexperienced.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of similar than buying businesses, managing businesses. Like a $2,000 deal might be fairly small and simple, but a $200,000 deal is definitely not going to be like 100 times more time consuming. So it might be like 5 times kind of more complicated, but certainly not. So it doesn't scale linearly. So it certainly makes sense as a broker to go after bigger deals.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that starts helping is, as you get into kind of the $1 million plus valuation deals, you tend to have a team behind the founder instead of just a solopreneur that's running the show. And that can help in not only post acquisition operations, but in migrations and just kind of helping ease the transition. If you have a support person that's staying on, if you have some designers and some paid media consultants that are going to stay on post acquisition, then it's a whole lot easier than having to do a knowledge transfer for 100% of the information from the seller to the buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious if you see kind of transitioning from low 6 figures, from mid 6 figures and to 7 figures. Do you see with the businesses, the bigger ones that you are dealing with now, that they are more stable, that they are less risky for the buyer? Or would you say sort of similar?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty general question.
Okay, like in terms of the risks that they are facing, and in terms of the structure. So the 7-figure businesses would generally have some employees, they would have some processes in place, so it's sort of easier to run. And the risks might be different, right? Like there is more diversification, maybe multiple sources of income, many different clients, multiple sources of traffic, things like that.
Yeah, yes, I would say that as you move upstream, there's going to be generally more diversification, and the risks should for the quality deals are going to decrease. That being said, you can still find very risky deals in the 7 figures. I mean, you can look at deals that are completely monetized through affiliate relationships and launch strategies, and unfortunately, those founders and want to apply the same multiples as they see for that SaaS businesses are getting. They don't understand that at the end of the day, it comes down to a risk assessment by the buyer of how that multiple is achieved. And there's a whole lot that goes into calculating that multiple and different and diversifying the risks. But, I mean, different monetization channels, different traffic channels, human resources. I mean, all of those things play a role in accounting for what the multiple is going to be. So I would, if somebody has I get asked the question quite a lot. If I have $1 million to invest in a business, maybe I should just go buy 10 $100,000 sites, or should I look at $1 million site? And my advice is usually to focus your energy on a single acquisition, or if you want to diversify, go for two at the most. Is what the real risk in diversifying that quickly and that broadly is that your focus won't be on any of those, especially for first-time buyers. That if you don't know what you're doing on one, you're certainly not going to know what you're doing on 10. So, and that's probably the quickest way to see your investments fall, is by taking your eyes off the ball and not paying attention to them. Because as much as anybody wants to say that they're passive income, it very rarely is that a true story. And I mean, it can be a passive income property for a while, but the truth is, if you don't give it some attention, it will die someday.
Yeah, I think there is a big misconception that people feel that buying an online business, especially a content site, is kind of like a real estate investment, that it's an investment that you just buy and hold. And that's versus from the truth. Like, it's a business. Even if it's an online business, it's first of all a business. So it has its risks. It has some maintenance requirements. You have to grow it. You have to do the marketing. You have to do some different things, and you have your clients. So it's really a business, and that really requires constant attention and understanding of the risks of the competition of the global market. And I certainly agree that like buying fewer, doing fewer deals is generally better, and focusing on kind of but also knowing what to buy. I see so many buyers just like start looking at numbers, start looking at deals, without taking some time to think and consider what should they actually go for. Like, what are their strengths? What are the strengths of their team? Like, what are they good at? What can they bring to the table? What kind of advantages they have? And that's so important, because this is going to increase your chances of success tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. When we engage in a buy-side representation, which we don't do very often, but when we do, we walk people through an avatar creation process and get them to really laser target what their superpowers are, and what levers they have to pull, and what disqualifies a deal for them for it to be good. And I think the challenge and one of the problems can be, like you said, everybody kind of like looking at every deal that comes through a pipeline, is that you can get bogged down into looking at deals that you don't really want, for the sake of looking at deals. So I would say to be very quick to say no if something's not a fit. And just to give a little rant here, if you are working with brokers, they can be your best friend. So give them the courtesy of telling them when you're not interested in a deal, instead of just ghosting them like you're a Facebook friend or something like that. Like, at the end of the day, you're engaging in a professional relationship. It is over the internet, so it's easier to kind of just blow people off. But those relationships that you build in the broker community will come back. It's okay to say no to people, but if you string people along and tell them you're going to give them an LOI, and then you go dark for 2 weeks, you're going to kill your chance of getting another deal in the future. So I don't know why people have a hard time like saying no. It's like they're breaking up with a girlfriend or something. But yeah, just remember that if you're going to engage in this as a business, then treat it like a business, and treat everybody you engage with respect, and kind of Anyway, rant over.
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of that as well on both sides of the picture, as buyers and as sellers. People are so slow to say no, and like often fast to say yes. Like you see a lot of people saying yes, okay, I want to buy it, and then just change their mind. And it's wrong. I think a much better strategy is just to say a quick no and a slow yes, like the opposite. And that's what we usually try to do. So if we have deals that just don't match our criteria, we just try to tell them no as fast as possible, to respect their time, so that they don't kind of wait up and develop expectations. And and if it's something that we are interested in, we try to do quick deals. So we often do deals in just a week, like six-figure deals we can often close in just a week or two. But even then, we want to make sure that we move in steps, like we do our due diligence in steps, and kind of incrementally increase it and go deeper as it develops. And I think that's certainly a big problem in the industry, that people just kind of ghost you. If you deal, especially as a broker, I imagine that's what happens a lot. Like if you are dealing with buyers, they look at some deals and they just never respond, and you kind of don't know, and you have to follow up, right? Does it happen often?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Must be nice. Must be frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, and we have our processes in place, so we can make sure that we continue to follow up. But at the same time, everybody is busy, and like I'm sure that I've been guilty of not responding on a single email in the past. But when it's like after 3 follow-ups and there was initially strong interest, it's always kind of like you just kind of shrug your shoulders, like what's going on? It just makes you, it immediately makes you think they're just not a professional, and they're not likely to be taken seriously in the future.
Yeah. I also kind of make a mental note of people this way all the time. Like if someone says, okay, I'm going to follow up tomorrow or in 5 days, and then they don't, that just tells you something about a person. And that just means that the next time you might not treat him as seriously as a buyer.
Yeah.
So we haven't really discussed some of the major details. What is your commission structure?
So we use the modern layman structure. So for anybody that's not familiar with that structure, it's 10% on the first million, and then it cascades down by 1% after each million after that, to a floor of 4%. So
okay, so let's say if I want to sell like 500,000 to 1 million website, the commission is going to be 10%.
Correct.
To the seller, right? Okay, and if it's like 3 million, so it's going to be like 1% of a million, and then like 10% from the first million, 9% from the second million,
8. Yep.
And 8. That's complicated.
Yeah, it
makes sense.
A little, but.
So are you not concerned that once you get to like 10 million, you might end up with progressively lower commissions? I mean, not progressively lower,
I mean,
but less.
It followed. We kind of took the model from the kind of more established and lower middle market M&A community, and it's a pretty standard pricing and commission structure for that market. The average commission rate for kind of the lower middle market is around that 3 to 5% mark. So like I said, at the end of the day, we're trying to create a brokerage that we would want to have serve us if we were on the other side of the table, and so I mean we think that's a fair structure, and and I think you'll probably see the industry as a whole move closer to some of the practices that the investment banking community, especially in this kind of $1 to $10 million range, I think you'll start seeing a lot of the best practices from that from them kind of cascade down as the industry continues to mature. So we're just trying to get ahead of that curve.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think one of the problems in the industry is that commissions are quite high. Like I feel that 15% is really high. And one of my predictions is that in the next few years, we are going to see lower commissions just on average across the board. And we were talking with Blake earlier, the CEO of Flipper, and I believe they are also, like they've been changing their commission structure practically every few months.
Yeah, lots of changes over there.
Yeah, but I think now it's also lower. And I think as more competition and as bigger companies come to the space, we'll probably see commissions become a bit lower on average. Would you agree?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that they'll go lower than where we have them, but I think 15% rates for sites over $1 million are probably unsustainable for the long term.
Yeah. Well, the Empire Flippers, their rate is 15 until the first million. And then I think after that it's 10%, something similar. And I know that some other brokers have similar rate as well. But 10 seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you have 5 brokers. Are they like independent brokers, or are they employees of digital acquisitions?
Yeah. No, they're independent.
And but they they're exclusive working for your company, right?
Correct.
And do you have some more people on the team, like technical people, things like that? People like have to do research.
Yeah, we have one research analyst. We have a couple of people that help with operations, and then our team of brokers. So overall, the teams at we have some on-demand labor, but anywhere from that kind of 7 to 8 person number for the whole team.
Yeah, so you keep it small. That makes sense, so that you can have people that are more experienced and more professional. And what kind of marketing do you do these days? Like, how do you get most of your clients?
Yeah, we're kind of going through. We're putting in a lot of new initiatives in Q4, investing in content marketing. We have some Facebook ads that are kind of promoting some of our lead magnets that we have that can be really useful for buyers, and I can happy to share a link to that. It's a kind of a workbook that allows buyers to kind of utilize a metric-based approach to analyzing deals. So kind of try to take some of that emotion out of it and use a scoring methodology to really kind of bring the best deals to the top instead of having to rely on emotion for those. So some of those things to kind of bring people into the top of the funnel and create brand awareness. Of course, we get a lot of deal flow coming from past clients and referrals, so that's a major area that we're strong in. And then I think with just like any other brokerage, we do a lot of outreach and connection through platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn, and just kind of building those initial connections, providing value, and being a resource for people, whether it's now or in the future. I have a big mentality of providing value with no strings attached. And so if I can help somebody with their site or give them some direction on to how to make their business more valuable, even if it doesn't result in a sale, then I'm happy to do that. And I mean, with just kind of an example that happened we just had a blog that we sold. It was a travel blog, and they had initially a buyer that they were working with directly, And I know them from a mastermind community that we're both part of. And so they called me up and they said, we're kind of in the dark here. I'm wondering if we could just ask you some questions about if this sounds right. Is this a good offer? Like, just pick your brain. So, I mean, I did that, spent an hour on the phone with them, gave them a lot of really good information on how to, things to watch out for in the closing process, and, wished them good luck. And, unfortunately, or fortunately for me, that deal fell apart, and they didn't know what to do at that point. So the value that I provided up front to them with kind of no expectations in return came back and decided to list with us. So there's actually a good testimonial from those clients on the website under our testimonials page. So if anybody wants to check that out.
Yeah, we can certainly add all those links later to the show notes for listeners to look at. So most of your clients are coming from word of mouth, from referrals, right? And you do some outreach. And that certainly makes sense. We at the Mint Magnate, we try to do the same. So we have many people coming to us who want to sell a business to us, and it just doesn't fit our profile. Maybe it's not big enough. Maybe the price is just too high. So we often try to help if we can with some advice. Like some of our people or I would kind of recommend them what to do, how to grow it further. And we often see that people appreciate that, and they often come back, 3 months, 6 months, or a couple of years later, and then they have a bigger business to sell, or then they refer someone else. So that certainly pays off to just have that attitude of trying to help people. I feel like the karma will come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you talked about the size of our team, and I think Dustin and I we're kind of on the same page. I don't think we have aspirations to kind of be the largest team or close the largest number of deals. Our kind of mission statement is just to kind of continue the level of quality and level of service that we can. I mean, for example, we for every listing we have, we bring everybody into their dedicated Slack channel, so the whole team can communicate with the seller at every step of the process. And even after we've launched the listing and are promoting it, then we found that it makes a really great communication channel, rather than utilizing, I'm sure you've had the experience with email threads that are 100 emails long,
and everyone is included, like CC.
yeah. So that's I think that our focus is on maintaining that quality of service and those relationships, having a tighter knit, smaller community of buyers and sellers that we really have a strong connection with, rather than kind of doing the far and wide with bringing on 50 brokers and creating a marketplace where we can kind of just churn things out. We focus on getting to understand the business and really so that we can A, value it correctly, and B, so we can communicate that value when we're in the marketing process.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. So you mentioned your aspirations or like a lack of aspirations in terms of growing too much. But what are some plans? Like, what do you envision the company to be next year, or like in 5 years? Would you like to be a little bit bigger, or just focus on providing a better service, or would you go into higher ranges?
Yeah, I mean, I think the market and the size that we're in right now is what we found is above that kind of 10 million range is when you start the activity, and the larger private equity firms and venture money starts, because those businesses start becoming attractive. And we've already seen the level at which those players have kind of moved down market, because the deals at higher levels have seen too much competition. So I don't know how far downstream those kind of the big money will come and try to perform roll up operations. But for right now, I don't see us kind of moving from the valuation range that we are focusing on. And so as far as value, I think that kind of answers your question. And then, the nice thing about kind of isolating and targeting the specific niches is, we can talk directly to the pain points that those specific businesses have, by kind of not directly targeting e-commerce and blogs and affiliate sites. We can really highlight the concerns and questions that agencies and SaaS owners are having about the process of selling a business.
And are you and your partner currently involved in all deals personally, or do you just let your brokers handle things?
Well, we are always involved in as a kind of an oversight capacity. So the brokers are certainly running their own deals with our kind of assistance especially during the closing process. But yeah, I would say that Dustin and I probably make up at least 50% of the overall deal flow. So we've been in the industry for a while, so it makes sense that we probably have an oversized amount of the closings.
Nice. And so I'm curious to discuss a little bit about the industry.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the competitors? If you have any thoughts, or the changes in the industry, because you've had the privilege to witness how it changed in the past decade or so, and what do you see happening next?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think it's really interesting what Flippa is the role that they've taken. We're a Flippa marketing partner, so we have the ability to market our listings through their platform, and I think it's a smart move to kind of embrace the brokerage community instead of trying to compete against it with their when they had their deal flow brokerage. So yeah, I mean, I think they're taking some really interesting initiatives there, and trying to kind of become, which I still think kind of needs to be filled out by somebody in the space, is kind of like a MLS, multiple listing service that can, and whether it's membership based, I don't know. I mean, I haven't put a lot of time into it, but the real estate market has a very defined strategy for how buyers and brokers work with one another through a buy-sell side relationship. And I'm kind of curious if that will, if something will mature there to kind of increase competition or cooperation. Yeah, and I don't know. I think at least my intent is to, and I don't really understand this. A lot of brokerages are very kind of isolationist. They tend to not want to work with other brokers, and yeah. I mean, we tend to have a more friendly relationship with the ones that actually want to have friendly relationships. And I guess our thoughts there are that for the client, it ends up being producing the best value and the best speed to closing. If if we have to work with a partner to get it closed, sure, we're going to make less money on the deal, but they ultimately got what they were looking for. And to me, that just is right. That's exercising that fiduciary duty to the client. Not maximizing my commission. It's maximizing what we signed on and promised the client that we were going to do. So I hope that the industry continues to kind of mature. And I mean, we have some great relationships with some of the brokerages, and others are, like to kind of keep their walled garden up and keep it in their own ecosystem.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, I think multiples. Multiples, I think, will continue to expand as the economy is strong. I personally think that probably we're going to see a bit of stagnation in the economy overall, which I think will impact not only buyer attitudes, but the bankers' underwriting standards. And so as those standards get tighter, I think we'll see kind of less competition on those deals, and thus probably push multiples down. So I would say, if I had to give a prediction, I would say that we'll continue to see expansion and strong sales in the next 12 to 18 months, and then probably followed by a contraction.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I agree with that mostly, except with one part. I feel that we are going to see some kind of economic stagnation soon indeed, and that will prompt many people to try to sell to get some liquidity. So the rates might drop down in the short term. But overall, in the longer term, I feel that what we'll see is that there's going to be a wider range. So like some businesses, and we are seeing that already now, like some businesses would go for higher multiples. And even within specific areas like within SaaS, I often see that there are some SaaS businesses that are just like very high risk, and they suffer more or less the same multiple as the lower risk businesses. So I was recently talking to someone who bought SaaS business in six figures, like mid six figures. It was doing quite well, and it had this service for that was completely tied to the Facebook API. And then a few months ago, Facebook changed the API. So some of those features that the SaaS was kind of using through the API, they're just not available anymore. And like that's it, that completely killed the business. The business is practically worthless because it cannot provide the same value anymore. But even before, if you look at a business like that's a major risk. And I would say a business like that should be priced much lower than like your usual SaaS multiple. And right now, we are not seeing that as much. Like there is some difference, but I think there is going to be a much bigger difference even within those areas, like within e-commerce, within SaaS, within agencies. Like you would just see some selling for like 1x or less than that, and others going for like 5x. So I'd imagine that's something that's going to happen as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I'm analyzing deals, I tend to put on my my worst case scenario hat, and you identified some of the major ones. I mean, organic traffic failures are at the top of the list, and as well as dependencies on third-party companies. And especially one of the highest risk ones, and they're almost, I think, kind of unsaleable really, are companies that are utilizing kind of operating against terms of service of other companies. So I can think of some like LinkedIn products and Facebook products. Those are just huge risks. Not only is it you risk that those platforms finding out and kind of changing, they're always changing their platform to try to mitigate against people that are abusing their systems, but you run the really real risk of legal action potentially. So those are definitely ones we stay away from representing. And when I see them come through the door, or like looking to value them, the way I would look at them is they would have to be either kind of like a 1x, like you were saying, or be extremely heavily weighted on some sort of a performance basis. Because it could be that they run for another 10 years, but they very like you said, very easily could be kind of shut down 6 months after acquisition, and now that's a big risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that business, it was not against the terms of service, but those terms do change sometimes. So that's certainly something to look out for. And what do you see in the future for yourself, for your company? Do you intend to keep working in that industry for a while, or maybe do you see yourself exiting at some point, selling the business, retiring? in a decade or so?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, right now it's we're seeing really great growth and having a lot of fun doing what we're doing. So the kind of the near term plan is that I plan on continuing in the industry, and I think um, as things mature, I think there's some new products and new opportunities that we'll probably continue to look at, which I know that a lot of other people are kind of looking at the fund model and and we've certainly looked at that model to kind of create our own portfolio. But at the same time, kind of going back to the first question you asked, it's it's an additional overhead, and I think there's always going to be a need for intermediaries to help buy and sell at that level. So it's certainly something we've tossed around to introduce other products and opportunities for investors. But I think for right now, we're just going to continue to improve the service, and just going to continue to kind of stay the course.
All right, that's a good plan. I certainly feel that you're in a good position, and I like your approach of really focusing on your responsibility to the clients, to the buyers, and kind of looking at what at everything you do as what would be the best for the client. And on that topic also, what do you see as the best opportunities in the market right now in terms of buyers? Let's say for someone looking to buy a business for like $1 million and they don't have any specific advantages or anything. What do you think are the best kind of deals that are maybe undervalued or underappreciated?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there are still some really good opportunities around blogs and affiliate acquisitions, to, like you mentioned back when you first started, taking traffic sites and putting AdSense on. There's a slew of new programmatic monetization partners like Mediavine and AdThrive that are offering kind of the next level of service above what AdSense can provide as far as monetization goes. So I think there's an arbitrage play there to look for undervalued or under monetized higher traffic sites, and then come in and introduce a different monetization model by introducing Mediavine or AdThrive. And then in a lot of cases, like actually one site that we purchased a couple years back was a blog, and it was in the kind of budget, kind of couponing and budgeting niche, and it was just being monetized through AdSense. And after we doing our due diligence, we kind of discovered there was a single site, a single page that was receiving quite a lot of traffic. And so we found ways to introduce affiliate offers into that post organically, just through link inclusions, and that ended up being accounting for, I think, 60 to 70% of the revenue after post optimization. So sometimes you have to think a little bit outside of the box, and when you're analyzing a site, look at it through the eyes of not how you can continue on with what they're doing, but how does your expertise, or where is there kind of a massive shift to introduce a new model, whether that's new monetization or leveraging an underutilized asset to make the business perform. I think in the SaaS space, there's certainly a lot of opportunities where there's maybe a technical founder and they've built a really great product, but they don't have the marketing chops to really develop out a proper onboarding process or analyze how to fill the gaps of addressing churn issues. And so for somebody that has those skill sets, I think there's a lot of opportunity to step in kind of at that $1 million level, maybe kind of the $500,000 to $1 million products where it's kind of a single founder running, and to really take those to the next level, stepping in, kind of utilizing some best practices.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Mediawine. They actually had Berth, the co-founder of Mediawine, on our show recently. So listeners can cut that episode, and she gave some really good tips on how to optimize. And we also had one of our websites approved for Mediawine last month, and the difference is just staggering. Like, it's so much better than AdSense. It's so surprising. But on the flip side, they rejected most of our websites because their criteria is very strict. Yeah, I think there is certainly still a lot of opportunity in finding this kind of affiliate sites and monetizing them better. That's actually what we do. Like, that's pretty much the main thing we do at Domain Magnate. We buy this kind of websites. We do generally go for below 1 million, so like in 6 figures or high 5 figures. And we try to find the sites where we can add some value, monetize better, improve conversions, improve SEO. And that seems to be something that there is still quite a bit of potential in it for buyers. But it's also something I think that requires quite a lot of skill. Like, you have to have a lot of experience to be able to see what are some things you can go and improve and do better. While probably running an agency, I don't know about SaaS. I think SaaS is a bit complicated for first-time buyers as well, but like running an agency might be an easier thing.
It depends on the structure of the SaaS and what the skill sets of the acquirer are. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a good marketing mind and a good ability, a good project management ability, you don't have to be a technical, you don't have to be a programmer to have success. It can be challenging to find developers that you can communicate with. So that's why we were kind of talking a bit ago. It's if you're not a technical person, and you're looking at in the SaaS space, finding opportunities that have developers that have been with the product for a long period of time and that are willing to stay on post-acquisition. We've even seen some cases where there's kind of a key person clause for those developers to stay on for X number of years or 1 year, whatever, to kind of diversify the risk or mitigate the risk of kind of the owner being left in the dark after post-acquisition.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you for joining us today, Ryan. So do you have any absolutely. final thoughts, final advice to buyers, sellers? Anything you want to share?
Final advice. No, I mean, I guess be diligent in your due diligence and when you're reviewing deals, and try to, as much as possible, eliminate emotional bias. And you can use our worksheet, business buying worksheet, to kind of help with that process. And I can give you that link so you can share it with your community.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. So how can people contact you if they have a question or want to sell or buy a website?
Yeah, you can go to digitalacquisitions.co. We have a chat widget on there. Also contact us form, or feel free to reach out directly to me, Ryan@digitalacquisitions.co.
All right. Well, thank you, Ryan. Thanks for joining us today. Pleasure to talk to you. Till next time.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
And thank you, listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a review on iTunes. Till next time.
Domain Magnate is a leader in buying and selling online businesses with a proven track record of expertise gained from over 300 deals since 2004. To learn more about how we can help you acquire or exit a profitable online business today, head over to domainmagnate.com for more details.